Okay, so we have a pot that we're heating up a little bit of water in, and this is just where you can see it's just a tiny bit of water in the pot. We're more going to steam cook these things real quick than we are going to cook them. We just want to steam them and then peel them. Then I've got my segments of my stems here, and then I've taken the leaves. Now, as I've said before, the leaves are not the most powerful place of the medicine, the root is, but because we killed the leaves when we cut this stem, that we will still, we're going to dry these and still use them as medicine. They won't be the strongest part, and later on in the year I'll go out and dig the roots up and get the more powerful medicine. But we're, this is still medicine, even though it's not the strongest medicine, and so you can use this. And when you see things like this, you'll take, I'll go through them, separate them, and then get them drying and take some of the bad parts off like that. You don't throw that whole leaf away. You don't. You just cut off the bad parts, unless this whole leaf looks bad, which it might. We'll go through and clean them up a little bit, and then pick through them and pick the good stuff off, and then dry them, and then keep them in a sealed jar. And like I said, then you can just kind of take a smell out of that, and it helps get rid of travel motion sickness. We're going to take these stems, and steam them as soon as this actually gets heating up. Okay, let's actually turn it like that. As soon as this gets heated up, we're going to steam these things real quick. Then we're going to peel the outside of them off. They peel better once they're steamed. And then we'll have the tender insides, and we're going to put them into, I've got just old, don't throw away your plastic containers. A friend of mine brought over some spinach that she ate while she was here for a couple days. And I kept the container, so I've got this container. I'm going to put them in there, and then we're going to put sugar over them, and that starts the candying process. Then we just let them set for 3 days while they trade their juices for the sugar. But first we got to kind of steam them and get this outer coating off. So as soon as I get this done, and I'll put you guys on your tether so you can, I can do stuff plus you guys can watch. So okay, so I got a steam going, so I'm going to turn that off and just drop these things in. We'll get these in here. Oop. And go a little faster. Get this all. And we're just going to get down in there, little guy. And we're going to steam them. And we're just going to steam them for about 5 minutes, just to kind of cook them up a little bit, just to get them. So what we're going to look for is a bright green color. So when you see that bright green color, and I'll show you that when we take them out. So back in a minute. Okay, I don't know, I'm hoping the camera can catch the difference now. This is much brighter of a green color. You can see just how bright it is compared to the other one. And that's what we're looking for, is that bright green color. So I'm going to get that out. I've got a bucket of ice water back there, and I'm going to get this out and put it in there. I'll be right back. So after you get them cooled down, and what I do is I grab from the bottom and stick them. Then you got to peel the outside real quick. And this is the time, if you didn't cut them below the joints, like if you were trying to be cool about it, you're going to want to make sure it's a lot easier to peel them without joints in them. So anyway, just peel them off, and then I'm going to put them over here into this container, and I'll show you from there. But so it's going to take a little bit, because got to peel all the stuff off, and it's not hard to peel. It's just a little time consuming. And that piece there, I took a lot of the flesh off. You try to take just as little of the flesh as possible, where you're just taking just that outer little bit there. So I got these things all peeled, and I chopped them up to, some of them are a little bigger, some of them a little smaller. The main thing is that you have to let it sit long enough for the biggest dose, or the biggest piece, to get candy. You can slice it in half like this. Like this one here was a little tougher, so I sliced it in half to try to get a little bit more tenderized. Or you can leave it whole in the circle like that, which is sometimes more fun to eat. And then what we're just going to do is we're going to cover it with a good amount of sugar. A good amount of sugar. Some people will say equal amount sugar as opposed to your Angelica. I just cover it all up with a good amount until I feel like it looks good. Oh, I want to get around to the other corner here. And one more just to be on the safe side. And Then I put, then I want to make a mess there. Then I put my cover. I'm going to back you guys up a little bit so you can kind of see more what's going on. Then I put my cover on. Kind of shake it so that everything's covered. Now this is going to start working, or it's going to start working, and I'll show it to you like in another 2-3 days. Here we are 3 days later, and you can see that the, make sure that you guys can see, that the, peacocks are yelling, that the Angelica has given up its syrup. And it's mixed with the sugars, and we've got a syrup that started. So now I'm going to put this all in to this pan, and we're just going to heat it up. Now, if yours is too thick, you can add a little bit of water. If it's too thin, you can add more sugar at this point. It's kind of hard to give you exact amounts because every bit is different. So every they're just getting right outside the door. They all want to be on. They all want to be on the video. So, you know, it's hard for me to say put this exact amount of sugar over this exact amount of Angelica because sometimes that's not it. Sometimes that just doesn't work. I usually say try to make it close to equal amounts, equal amount of sugar to equal amounts of Angelica. So then I'm going to just pour it all into my bowl. Like I said, I'm just going to kind of heat this up really quick. I'm not going to worry about scraping every little bit out, but I am going to get most of it out. So if I cut away, it's because I figured scraping is taking a little bit too long. Okay, so I've got all the syrup and everything right into this pot. I guess I can show it to you. It's the same stuff that we just looked at. And I'm going to heat this up. And I'm going to heat it up, at a halfway decent clip. So right now I'm just going to boil this up and let these, here I can actually show you guys, take you off your tether there. Oh, and your battery light's flashing, so you may be closing down on me here pretty soon. But we just want a nice little gentle rolling sugar boil here. Show you the actual stuff there. And so we're just wanting to boil that gently. And we're going to let it boil for a few minutes, 5-10 minutes. We're not looking to really boil it out. We're just going to, you know, we're not looking to make the syrup super thick, but we want to slightly thicken the syrup so that it kind of clings a little bit more to the plant material. And remember, this is hot sugar, and sugar holds heat better than most things. So don't think, oh, shall I taste this, and try to take a little out or stick your finger into it or anything like that. At this point, this is very, very, very hot. It's a hot sugar solution. So anyway, I'm going to cook this up for a little bit, and I'll show you the next step. And that's where we actually will separate the sugar or the syrup from the plant. So back in it. We'll see how long you guys last. That little battery thing is going at me. But anyway, I've let this cook down. So I'm going to let it just kind of cool just a little bit so it stops bubbling. And then I'm going to pour it through here. And then I've got my wire rack set up over here. We got to dry it. And there's two different uses for this wire rack, depending on how bad the flies are that particular year. This particular year, the flies aren't so bad, so I'm just going to layer my plant up here. But and then probably a little down below too, for the little stuff. But if the flies are really bad, then what I do is I put it on the tray to let it dry, and then I put cheesecloth and have the thing hold up the cheesecloth off of it. Because after we drain it, we're going to have to let it dry, and that takes about 12 to 18 hours or so to dry it. So we'll get this going here. Okay, batteries died, so new batteries in. I do rechargeable batteries, so you have to forgive me, but every now and then, one of them, you know, after you've had them for like 3-4 years, then they start getting a little low on charge. They only hold it for just a little bit. So we're just going to drain this off. Yep. I'll throw that on the floor. No, actually on the counter. We'll pick it up in a second. Now, truth be told, you can take the syrup here, turn that into wine. So, you know, this syrup has got a lot of different uses. It's basically Angelica syrup at this point. So you can use it. I tend to, if I'm going to do anything with it, I tend to mix it with other wines, to make other wines. Any of your herbs makes a good herbal wine, especially if you made it with honey. But you don't have to throw this away, but we're done with it at this point. For what we're going to use, what we're going to continue to do here, we no longer need it. So I'm going to set it aside. And I'm just going to kind of tip this up here and arrange them and pick them up. Anyway, basically now we're just going to dry these things off. Let's move this over. I'm just spreading these things out to dry, and I'll fix on the ones down below in just a minute. Now these are a little warm, so if you want to let them cool off a bit before you start messing with them, that's fine. I can things and things like that, and I'm afraid once you've been in the kitchen for a while, your hands can handle a little more heat than they can if you aren't in the kitchen a lot. So, but yeah, it is. I mean, it's hot, heated sugar, and it gets very hot compared to you know, other things that are heated at the same temperature. So always be careful when you're working with it. And we're just trying to make a single layer so that it dries without sticking to each other. And I've obviously got more than what's going to fit on the top rack, so then I'll kind of rearrange them down below too. And that's no problem, just as long as they're kind of in a single layer. So we're going to let these dry. You'll know when they're dry because they won't be super sticky like this. And then we've got our little Candied Angelica that we can use for stomach aches. If you have a delayed menstruation, you can use it for that. It helps with menopause. Anything on this order, you'll have this. I'm going to dry it, and then I'm going to stick it into a glass jar and keep it. Since it's candied, sugar is a preservative, so since it's candied, that's why they originally candied things, not to make them taste good, but to preserve them. And so you'll be able to store it on a shelf, but you do want to store it in an airtight jar. And that's what we'll do. We'll put it into a jar. But anyway, I'll show you that when we get to it. But there we are, a little bit further along in our Candied Angelica. And I may rearrange a little bit better than that, but we'll get that. We're just going to let it set dry. Like I said, if you have problems with flies, then just you put a towel over it. You can put them all on the bottom rack and put the towel over the rack part of it. Best thing is open weave as possible, so if you have some of that craft cheesecloth, that works really well. You just don't want the flies on it, but you want as much air to get to it as possible. So I don't have flies right now, so I'm not worried about it. So I'm going to let those dry, and I'll get back to you in the next step. Okay, I'm putting on in an extra step here. You don't need to do this. I'm just doing this because our weather is getting stickier. It's getting hotter, more humid, and I'm going to be gone this weekend. I'm teaching a ranger's class, which basically means I'm going to go out on Friday and come back on Monday, Monday afternoon. So, and I can't leave this sitting out all the time. And because the weather's getting hotter and more humid, our sugar is not drying completely. It's getting tacky, but it's not drying all the way. So even though it's been sitting for 24 hours, normally what I do is just let it sit for another 24 hours to let it dry or whatever. But what we're going to do, because I can't spare that kind of time, is I'm just putting them into a Ziploc baggie with a half cup of sugar or so, and then I'm just going to kind of shake this up and get it all over the outside of that, and that's going to take the stickiness away. Then I'm going to get these into a canning jar, basically, probably a couple of them, and they'll go into a nice dark place, a dark, cool place, and these will be preserved. The sugar is the preservative here. Angelica. and we're keeping it in a jar, and the main reason for that is the sugar is a preservative, so it's not like you got to keep the air out, but you do need to keep the moisture out because it'll make it sticky. And that's not a pleasant, they'll get all stuck together and you have one big clump instead of a whole mess of individual pieces. So, and to maintain the medicinals, you're going to want to store it in a dark place. But other than that, you've got yourself a great wild medicinal. Not that hard to make, even though the video is quite long. It's not that hard to make, it's just time consuming. That is Candied Angelica. Great medicinal from the wild.